I had this idea that maybe I could make a smokeless fire pit out of a couple propane tank ends. So I have the ends, and I'm just having fun out here in the shop. It's just me today, and I'm trying to figure out how to make this thing look cool and work well. And, it's all a test, so we'll see how it does. I've got my level up on there so I can get a rough idea of how high I am from the top of the pit. I have it upside down right now, so if I just measure from the table, I get a pretty good idea from that. I've got that laser line over there in the corner to help me with my legs. You'll see how that works here in a second. And I have a piece of leg cut off now that I decided on what angle and where I wanted the leg to attach to the bowl. Now I've got a floor jack, and I'm leveling my table so that I can use that laser line to set all of the legs. I've got a little torpedo level there to make sure the legs are plumb. And I'm tacking that one leg where I want it. If this works well, I was thinking maybe I could buy a few more tank ends and build a few of these to sell. So we'll see how it works. My idea is that I will use this big bowl as my outer bowl, and then also spin a smaller tank end inside of it that will actually be the fire bowl. The air between the two of them will get heated up, and I'll use that hot air to blow out on the fire and burn up the smoke. I'm using a vinyl tape measure with some magnets to hold around the circumference, and I'm setting the tape measure at the same height off the top of the bowl. Remember, the bowl's upside down, so I can just measure from the table, eyeball it over to where my tape is. And then I can take the total circumference, I can divide it by 4, and I will have the distance I need between my legs. I'm using 3 legs on this table, so naturally there's 4 spaces between the legs, and that's why I divide it by 4. Alright, one leg is tacked in place. Let's get another. Here's the second leg, tacking that one up where it needs to be. And then once this one's in, we have the third leg, and then it's time to make sure that this is going to sit level. Just the way this beam is, it's really awkward to cut off. It's an I-beam, a small I-beam, so I just roughly cut it off on the ends. You'll see the ends here in a moment. They're not straight or flat. They're just pretty close to what I want to go for, so I don't have a lot more to remove. I'll final tune them here in just a bit. I'm just tack welding the corners of all these legs right now. It's incredible how strong a tack weld really is if you get good penetration. And now I'm setting up that laser line, look, so it's just barely on the bottom of the feet. And that gives me a straight line across all the feet. So you can see I'm in the neighborhood for sure. I just need to cut it and sand it to the laser line, and we'll be good. So on some of the ones where I had a little more to remove, I actually cut it off with a cutoff wheel. It worked pretty good, and then I just final sand it down with a flat disc until the laser's just barely on all the feet. I mean, it's so easy to level something like this. It kind of feels like cheating, but I mean, if you've got it, use it. All right, that is basically the bowl, the outside bowl. And so I'm going to set that aside and get on to the next step. I'm going to cut the top edge of the fire ring on this out of 3/16 steel. That's what the tank end is made out of as well. So we'll match those up. 3/16 steel tank end, 3/16 rim. Just like a donut, pops right out of there. And we'll roll that over and see if it fits our bowl nicely. Oh, looks good. I like it. All right, this is going to be the fire bowl. It is a smaller tank end. And I spaced out all these holes. These will feed the hot air from between the two bowls right into the fire. That's a 3/4 inch hole saw. I drilled my pilot holes first, and now I am hogging out a 3/4 inch round. The tube of coolant there I'm using is called Cut Stick. Somebody told me about it years ago. I got it. It works great. I like it because it'll stay on your bit. Even I'll just dip that bit in that tube of it, and it melts it pretty good, and then it stays on there real nice. So I just marked the rim of the fire pit where this fire bowl will come to. Made the marks all the way around so I know exactly where it sits. Then I clamped down the rim, and now I'm clamping down the bowl with the good old ratchet strap, because how do you get a clamp on that thing? I want that to stay really tight to the rim when I weld it. So just a little tap to straighten it up with those marks I made earlier. I don't know if you can straighten up something round, but yeah, match it up with the marks. And then I'm welding a little bit here, a little bit there, taking my time to work around the edges. Kind of like you would tighten the torque nuts on a tire. Or the lug nuts, torque the lug nuts on a tire. Kind of like you would do that. You weld a little on this side, and you switch sides, weld a little on that side. Otherwise, you'll get a warp going, and it won't come out very flat. Now that that's all welded off, let's set this into our fire pit. See what we think of it. Nice. Oh, that's not bad. So I did a calculation, and I figured out how many square inches I had of 3/4 inch holes around the edge, and figured out how much intake I would need on the bottom so that I could get, it wouldn't be starved for air trying to put it onto the fire, or it wouldn't have so much excess that it wasn't getting it as warm as it could. And I figured out what size of hole I wanted to make in the bottom, and then I dropped that ball bearing in there to find the center of the bottom. I marked that, and I drilled a pilot hole. Now I've got the hole saw, the size of hole I want to intake enough air to feed out through my output holes. Flip this thing over and drill to meet myself on the other side. Boom. We got a hole. And now I'll deburr the inside of that hole. And the bottom of the feet, too. Might as well while it's upside down like this. Back up on the table with the main bowl so that I can weld the legs off. Now I'm using this little jig that I made up with a couple of 3/8 inch round bars welded to a piece of 1/2 inch plate, clamp that in the vise. I'm using it to bend a piece of 1/8 inch by 1 inch strap. Just in little bits like that, you can get the rounds you want. And I'm trying to match the radius of the big bowl, because these are going to be tabs that I weld to the underside of the rim to keep the fire pit centered in this bowl. That's a pretty good match right there. So now I'm going to cut my lengths of this. I'm going to use 3 of them. I think I experimented with using 4. You may see some marks on the underside of the rim where I tack welded them on, and it was just easier to fit 3 into the bowl because you can't see underneath there very easily, and you can easily get one of these clipped on the wrong side of the bottom bowl, and then it's off center. So I found out that using 3 worked the best. So you might see marks where I remove some of these and change their position. But then I got all 3 welded where I wanted them, and I'm welding off the inside of them. I'm not welding on the outside because they're close enough to the outside bowl that that weld could hang up on the edge and make it not sit down all the way. And I want it to sit down all the way so that we're not getting air escaping, or we're not getting much air escaping out the outside edge. It all goes through those 3/4 inch holes at the fire. I had that rim hang over the edge of the fire bowl a bit, so it's directing that air out instead of just letting it go up immediately. I hope that helps with burning off smoke. Yeah, not bad. It's definitely strong. Here I am testing to see how much support it has out there where it doesn't have a foot. Where it does have a foot, it's got a lot of nice support. Let's test it. This is what we've all been looking forward to. We'll see how it works. And so here's what we thought of it. when you've got a fire like this, look, you've got just a touch of smoke coming off. When you have a lower fire like this, it smokes more. So you've got to have a hot enough fire, I guess, that's heating that air up. But because of how shallow that fire bowl is, we really couldn't have a big fire in there. The reason that fire bowl is as small as it is just because the size they make tank ends. If I were to do this again, I would drop that fire bowl down further. Probably put a piece of strap around the top edge of it, drop it down further so that you can get more wood below the rim. And it has a little bit more time for that hot air to burn the smoke off as it comes out of the fire. Overall, I thought it worked pretty decent as long as your fire's hot. When you let it go down to coals to like roast stuff, that's when you start getting more smoke. Or if you make a big fire and it's up above the rim, then it's smoking anyway. I wouldn't pitch this as a smokeless fire pit just because that sweet spot is so small. But it was fun to make, and I'm probably going to end up modifying it over the years to come and see if I can find a design that has a little bit larger sweet spot for being smokeless.